just seem nicer to, not be overly an asshole on purpose. And it's like all these people just they're like their egos got them so engaged, right? They just question everything with such confidence.
Yeah. Well, it's easy to get fooled, man. It's super easy. And
Well, in terms of this, just real quick back on the Mount Vincent thing and these trips. I mean, the thing is, it's like you can book them and take them. So that's the last part of it.
yeah.
So like if someone even were to say that they were actors, and it's like, okay, but what if you can book it and be on the flight next, whenever. So, and you could actually even go to Mount Vincent. Like they have trips that take you all the way there. So yeah, that's kind of the thing too. So like if anyone is claiming that it is all actors or that it's fake, it's like a ticking time bomb maybe. And as long as they get there though, they would have to get to there, of course. I guess they'd have to go there themselves. But I'm just saying it's like a ticking time bomb until they realize like, oh, okay, well, if it is real here, then yeah, they probably weren't all faking it. If they go themselves.
Well, no, everyone's gonna say that they're the new act like Run Boston Bears an actor now. You know what I mean? They're gonna say everything. This is where they kind of fucking dude. They kind of got us because they see this whole time they were like mining us for information the whole time. I was like, and they were doing like these psychic evals on us and shit. And I was like, why the fuck are they doing this? Like, they already know that we're flat earthers and we're like broadcasting our information already. Like we're trying the hardest we can to fucking broadcast, what we've discovered or, what we're looking into and stuff. So why do they have to infiltrate that if like we're openly fucking giving this shit out? And it's because they needed to know all the very specific angles to basically like hoodwink us. They used our own psychology against us, and now we have this anti-truther movement that has the same angst and energy that the truth movement has, except under the same guys. They think they're the truthers.
Fucked up. They
got totally fucking hoodwinked.
Yeah. It's Edward Bernays City, bro, in my opinion. Yeah. They did
so
it.
That's how you know it's a fucking op, because it was done, it was buttoned up way too perfectly.
Charonism, flipping.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just buttoned up way too perfectly. And I know not everybody agrees with me.
All
their
nasty stuff. All that nasty stuff's real, man. All those footage, it's great. Okay, Jaron, good luck with that, bro.
It's wild though, right? Like they actually got all the flat earthers to like deny real phenomena.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
And so then now we are the hypocrites.
Well, yeah, I think it just seems like, there was a false piece of information that was kind of like placed in there, or just, for whatever reason that was linked to that. It is kind of linked to the Gleason's map in a way, isn't it? Because, I mean, the Gleason's does claim that there's no light past 80 South. So, I mean, if you can fly 4 hours south of, like, if you're like, what were they at 52 or whatever it was, Punta Arenas, 57, I forget the number. But yeah, 54, whatever it is there, Punta Arenas, and then you're going to fly to 80, south. And I mean, they said they had, compasses the whole time and it was going south. And so, yeah, obviously, like, unless any one of us went ourselves, then there's a certain level of just what they claim. But nonetheless, I've seen a lot of other people take the flight too, though. Like I said, there's lots of other footage as well. But yeah, I mean, they seem to be going south. So if they get there and there's a whole 24-hour sun, then I mean, that Gleason's is just wrong, or just on that alone. Unless anyone would contest that. In terms of what it says in the lower right, when it says that there's no sun past 80 South, no sunlight. It says it in the lower right part of the Gleason's map.
Right. Yeah, but how would he know? He's probably never been there, right?
That's fair to consider. But I mean, wouldn't he know the arc pattern and the sun in the south matches that? But
well, I mean, he was probably using whatever data that was available to him.
Well, the Gleason is genuinely just it's no different than a Mercator. Basically, it's your world map, which has already been transformed to a globe, right? So they have to take that globe, and then they have to transform it back. Okay, so any measurements that are done, They say that when you do a long distance measurement, it has to go to a globe because that's what they measure. So that's what they say. I don't know. I've never done geodesy, so I don't know.
But
Get out there.
wouldn't all the distortion would be happening in the southern hemisphere, right? Like away from the focus and attention. All the northern hemisphere is pretty much decent, fine, yeah.
I think that's what. I think that's the contention. Yeah, I don't know. No. Well, no. Even though on the northern hemisphere you would supposedly have your spherical excess. You know,
Yeah, but it's like it's only out by a tiny. I don't know, like all the specifics and details, but the EA map still seems to be pretty reasonable. Like there's probably some distortions going on in the south, but I don't think there's anything too big to worry about, except for maybe a big land mass missing in the Pacific or something. But who knows?
Yeah, but I mean, the thing about like the sun though is that it does fit what a magnetic field does, like in terms of the two rotations in that way. So I mean, whatever the sky is above the Earth, like the Earth is just what it is. The sky just is what it is, and then the sky does move and look to us like it looks to us. So yeah, I think we just have to consider all of those because, yeah, I mean, from a really rigid, like azimuthal equidistant, that kind of a layout, it does pose a question that if the sun is circling around Polaris during the 24-hour sun in the north, then when the 24-hour sun happens in the south, the sun is actually arcing the other way. It's not arcing towards Polaris. And if you had 3 concentric circles, it would always arc towards Polaris, even though it'd be a little bit less on the tropic. But in this case, or what happens, and I've known this for years, it's not like a new thing with all this. I mean, we've talked about this for years. In fact, I've got funny images from way back years ago with, anyways, yeah, this is a funny one where it shows the AE map and then it says, you know, the sun rising south of east and south of west. It's like, it's been like a globe argument. And that was one of their stronger arguments because of that, you know, but it wasn't really, it never really kind of got too much, you know, they knew they couldn't really go that much further with it because I think also people consider the idea of how we see and the vision and how when you're, you know, on the kind of, if you're moving out from a center, how it actually looks there. But
would you say
yeah,
that
anyways,
the sun
but
still rises in the east and sets in the west though, Gio? You said it goes the other way, but does it rise in the east still?
Yeah. It just, when you're, all right, so let's say you're, it's just, it's reversed, you know, in the north and the south. Yeah. It's like figure 8.
I've been having a bit of trouble getting my head around it as well.
All right, so I'll just this image real quick, like it shows you know, like a magnetic field. But essentially, like when you overlay the stars, that's what they look like. I've got some animations showing the stars like that. You can do that with Stellarium. You can put it into that where you can see both of them, and then you can rotate it like really fast. Got animations, but it might take me a minute if I'm gonna, if I'm just gonna focus on what I'm saying, and I'll pass the mic real quick. But yeah, so I mean that general pattern where you have that, and then you can rotate it like really fast. I've got animations, but it might take me a minute if I'm gonna, if I'm just gonna focus on what I'm saying, and I'll pass the mic real quick. But yeah, so I mean that general pattern where you have that, you have the two poles like that, like the North Pole and the rotation, and then all those kind of latitude and longitude lines, as it were. And then you have the celestial equator or the equatorial point there at the equator, and then going south. You know, in this analogy, would then be going to that south rotation. So I mean, in terms of like over a planar surface, as you go north or south, in a way, this is what the sky looks like, or at least this pattern. I mean, I could put the actual stars and show you the animations of the stars, but that pattern. So whatever the ground is, but the sky is that. So that's essentially what's referred to as the celestial sphere, because that celestial sphere is like on this one, which I posted before, on that vertical wall, is actually a projection of a sphere, which is why they can make the celestial sphere into a sphere, a huge sphere in their globe model. But that vertical wall there on that last one I just posted is actually like what the sky looks like from the ground, just looking up at it in terms of the two poles and then the equator as you move across the Earth. So whatever the map is the map, and that's very interesting at some point if we can get more independent mapping done. But the sky observes in terms of that a celestial sphere. It's like a stereographic projection of a celestial sphere over a planar surface. Which is what a planetarium is. That's why it replicates it right down to all the geometries required, with no globe needed or utilized. Like you can have planetariums that all have like a specific arrangement of the stars, and then could all be different planetariums, and that's how you replicate how you view things. So yeah, I mean, like if you put that thing on an AE map, I mean, that is one like idea, I guess. If you put the stereographic thing over an AE and then you rotate it, but the thing with that is like the sun would have to like move with you in the south, or the AE map is just false in terms of how it links to the sky. Because I mean, the AE map does have those huge distances in the south and all that. Yeah. Anyways, that's a lot to consider. Sorry, I went on long there. But Tarek, sorry, I know that was long, but you were kind of asking that general layout of it, and then, yeah, just how the sky.
Oh, yeah. I haven't got too much to sort of add to this except for my crazy idea that potential. I've been listening to a lot of Lindsay lately, and it sort of is proposing even his recent one is he's pointing at there's something equivalent to something like the AE flat layout, but then this time-space relativity is occurring, and that the south actually expands, like molecularly expands or something, and the sky remains the same. So you get bigger on the outside, and then it causes this ocular effect of you being able to see like vastly over the plane potentially. But like over the plane, are you seeing over the plane? No, you can still see like just as far on the ground. It's just that the sky comes more into view. But yeah, dude, it's I'm not at any potential to be able to explain it fully yet. But there's just some little snapshots that I'm listening to and some other interpretations that might be going on.
Yeah, no, I got you. That's interesting. Yeah, I've heard you mention that, and I am aware of him, but I just wanted to post this real quick too, because that is a whole topic. I mean, I've heard you mention that, and if you want to go into it more, I'm open to hear about it. But I don't know exactly his theory on that, so I guess I don't have a direct response. But I was going to post this from before. This is just cool, dude. Shout out to Brian Leakey who did this. He had like parallel lines of stars on a sheet of paper, and then he put like a lens over it, and it created what looks like that kind of clockwise and counterclockwise with the straight line in the middle. Anyways,
sure.
I thought that was really cool.
And that, like, I mean, it seems like trite or sort of, what do you call it, like a bit childish to mention, but the snow globe idea, like you're within a sort of chamber, and then you have your own celestial sphere inside of that chamber, and like a lot of stuff is bending and warping at the peripheries.
Well, take a look
sort
at
of stuff
this.
coming in. Yeah.
Take a look at this one where in a way, those are all like all the stars are just kind of parallel. Well, they're circularly parallel.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like putting the dome over it or putting the glass lens over that, which is pretty interesting. So like there is an idea like this whole two-sided sky thing with the two suns and all that, the two 24-hour suns 6 months apart, and the whole like, clockwise, counterclockwise, the straight line at the center. Like this one, that last image kind of shows the idea. Even if you maintain generally kind of like an AE map type of layout where the continents all come out from the center, and then the distances would be greater in the south, and the south would be more expanded. But this little animation here kind of shows with like this little glass dome put under this rotating thing that if we see in some way that I'm not saying we see in a glass dome, but if there's some way in which there is a lens or the sky acts as a lens, then could you actually see that effect with an AE layout? But the thing is that those two rotations would have to move with you. Meaning when you're in the south and you see a 24-hour sun, if you just start hiking west or hiking east, that 24-hour sun would have to stay with you the whole time. Otherwise you're going to get to the end of the 24-hour sun, or you know what I mean? So there would have to be something else going on. So that's kind of where the clincher comes in as to what, is in terms of that part of it. But I'm just saying, if you have that kind of a thing where it shows the two rotations in that dome, that could be actually placed out over an AE map, but it would have to move with you in the south. And that's what would have to be validated. If it does, that would be pretty amazing.
What about the angular separation? That image you posted. You see that the angular separation between the stars changes under that lens. That doesn't happen in reality, though, does it? The angular separation between the stars are constant.
If you're asking me, you'd have to clarify exactly what you mean by that.
I would
let's
say
say
I'd say Stefan, what's being proposed here? I'm just gonna what's being proposed here is just one aspect of the phenomenon. It's not a complete model of what the sky is doing. I get where you're coming from. It's just trying to show how like a dome, like a transparent reflective dome, refractive index, and the way that the lights move upon it can sort of start creating some of these phenomena that we're observing in the sky. It's not to say that it's complete resolution.
Well, how about this?
No, but I mean, there's always these big problems.
Hold on, dude. Just because I just posted it, let me just get in for 2 seconds. I won't go long. But see, one of them shows the actual Earth, and the other one shows. Well, anyways, that one shows it with a little glass dome as well. But,
thank you, Gio. That's a good one.
But yeah, no, dude, that thing's just a very crude little animation thing. I mean, it's just literally a little glass lens bubble magnifying thing over a, some kind of rotating disc of little dots on it. Those aren't even necessarily the stars. I mean, and yeah, it looks like they're all warped around the edges and it looks all funky. So yeah, I'm not saying that's exactly, but I was actually just posting it because it's an interesting one to show, and we've looked at that over the years. And then, it does allow for a way to have a concentric circle surface that's going out from a center and having the sky function in a way, which is what this little glass thing represents, to where you would actually get the straight line in the center and the clockwise and counterclockwise. So it's like a celestial sphere that moves with you as you move across the plane. And you change your angle to the two poles of that celestial sphere as you go north and south. The celestial sphere is the sky part of it. And so that I'm just saying that animation shows where you could have the two sides of it over even a concentric circle AE type of layout, and at least the base geometries would be all, that just shows a very kind of crude like representation, or just a very simplistic representation of the effect, showing that it's at least within the realm of possible in that way.
It's problematic surely just because you're looking at like down through a dome, right? Like, I mean, if we wanted to start getting really technical, we'd say, okay, we're like trying to replicate the human perception of being on that surface inside of a dome, then seeing within your own celestial dome. Like that starts getting a bit harder. And I was kind of thinking about that. It's like we need a camera inside of a dome looking at these reflections coming through a dome, and then you can start getting closer to what you might call like an actual model. But there are compounding effects that seem to be going on such that it kind of leaves the result in it's quite difficult to ascertain because of the compound, like different phenomenon compounding with one another, such that, I mean, dude, yeah, it definitely appears as like it's a globe. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, MC2 did that example. I mean, he had this glass dome, and he had these points were representing stars, and he had a camera inside of it and turned it around, and it does not match up with what we actually see.
Hey,
So
Stefan, can I ask you something real quick? Hold on, I got this image queued up. I'm just posting it. This is from Lady Blunt, her book, Zetetic Astronomy, but it's from Lady Blunt's book. Okay, so it shows sort of the northern and the southern rotations, as it were, of the sun. Would you agree that if that two-polar thing was what the sky was, and if that South Pole part followed you as you went around the outside, and let's just say like an AE type of map, let's just take that for the moment. If that southern one followed you and looped all the way around and around, is that the only option that it has to do in your mind? Or there's even the idea of like four corners or something where there's like, four different kind of areas or something. But I'm just saying, like, in terms of the geometry of it, because before you were talking about that, and then, the sun rotation. But but linked with that last image I posted, which shows kind of the glass thing with the two. This just sort of shows Lady Blunt's version of having those two. And then, like I said, if you place that north one at the North Pole, south one at Union Glacier, okay, great. But as you start traveling, if you were to, this is like I said from the AE map type of layout, that southern pole would move with you. Or it would not move with you, and there would have to be multiple corners or multiple outer areas. I just wondered if you would agree with those or not.
A bit hard looking at my phone in the sunlight. So,
it was basically a figure eight.
Figure eight. Yeah. Well, it's always, you could always sort of post hoc rationalize and try to come up with an explanation, but then you get into problems. How does it move that way? What forces is in the system? What's acting on it, and so on and so forth. To have such an idea, how should I say, getting convincing? Yeah, all the details need to be in place, not just the geometry of it. If you know what I mean. What forces is changing the path of the sun, and so on and so forth.
Electrical field. It's an electrical toroidal field.
No, it doesn't help.
The thing is, it's not really.
Well, no, if that electrical field was there, shouldn't we sort of be able to measure it some way?
Yeah, you can detect it. What are you talking about? You got sky voltage potential.
You can't.
The thing about, hold on, I feel like you skip past the figure eight part. The figure eight part is not saying that the sun moves in an eight. That's not what the claim is. It's not that the sun goes through an eight in the sky, although there is the analemma, of course, which actually kind of does show that figure eight effect. But that's not what it's claiming. Like it just so on this like this Walter Bislin thing, as it were. So like just looking at those, you can see how the arc of the sun is on a different position of that, like we call that the celestial sphere, their view of the sky, which is what this is pulled from. This is pulled from Stellarium. So as you move on the ground, this whole celestial sphere tilts above you. The sky itself, I'm not saying the sky is tilting physically. I'm saying that it seems to be like your view of it as you move south, that you get, the whole thing arcs. So as you get closer to that Sigma Octantis, keeps getting higher and higher. And then the second one I posted is, I think that's supposed to be like at Union Glacier, shows what they would have seen there. You see the little sun on that little thing. So yeah, so what I'm referring to though is that this is not really, it's not like the sun's making the figure eight. It's like the sky essentially, tilts throughout its, as you move north to south, to where like that's the 24-hour sun in the north one reversal. And then this one is at the equator, which is 50-50. So now you get, Polaris is just not quite visible, Sigma Octantis. And now you're seeing the equator of the celestial sphere above you at the equatorial region. So, and I realize though that the line going straight there of the sun doesn't match the AE arc. So that's something to consider as well. But I'm just saying what we actually observe north and south in terms of how the sky is observed to us. Now, I know the globe has their explanation, but I'm just talking about what we actually observe in terms of the sky as we move north and south.
Yeah, but I mean, how does it do that? What shape would the celestial sphere have to be able to plot it out in a model like that?
What
for it to
what
do
you
that.
think the
Right. So
celestial
like in
sphere
this,
is?
like in this software, for example, what is allowing you to move it all around Bislin's thing and you can see it all the stellarium data over a planar surface? Well, yeah, what's allowing for it on this is obviously pixels and computer graphics and, Unreal Engine. I'm not joking. He probably didn't use Unreal Engine, but whatever he used to make this little thing, etc. So I hear what you're saying. If that's what actually reality is, or the Earth is, and the sky is doing this, if that's your question, yeah, it's like, okay, well, we know the graphics can do it in a computer, but is that actually, how does that happen in the actual sky above us? So, I mean, I do hear you there, and that's a much deeper question of like the actual mechanics behind it. And I mean, it could be argued that unless we could go there and get samples or get close to it, all we can really do is observe it. And from that point, we can observe how it moves. And I mean, for Earth to be a globe, curvature would have to be measured, of course. So, I mean, especially in terms of that whole factor as well. But I mean, I'm just saying, if there's no curve in that sense, then the sky is doing what it's doing above the surface.
It's basically just a figure out something that could explain what we observe so that it conforms to a flat Earth. And then say, well, we don't actually know why it is like that, but it just have to be.
Well, does anyone know exactly how the sky works? Are you claiming you do? You know exactly how the mechanics of the sky?
No, but
Yeah,
I think we got a rather good idea. I mean, I've been an
who's
amateur
we?
astronomer,
Other people?
like myself. I've been an amateur astronomer for quite some years.
Oh no, I don't
Well,
mean
that's
that.
great.
I hear you on that.
Works, though.
I'm talking.
What is it?
No, I hear you. I'm just talking about like the tangibility of being able the mechanics of the sky, for example, not just looking at it or observing. I'm saying the actual how the sky is working, how it actually moves, for example.
Well, it's much simpler on the globe model to explain. On a flat Earth, we have to come up with all kinds of unsupported ideas just to try to solve a problem.
That's what the whole globe model is, in my viewpoint. So it's interesting you said those words.
Is it? No, but yeah. you know how the globe model is. Stars are far off. The Earth is rotating around its axis.
Yeah, that's a lot of assumptions you have to then, and then the way gravity has to work, and being on a sphere and having curvature. There's so many water adhering to the outside of a sphere and a vacuum. There's so many factors that get brought in.
No, it's easy.
It's
quite simple.
Become difficult to explain. So then they have to come up with things like dark matter and all these other because they can't.
Then you're talking about.
I mean, even at the highest level, they can't explain.
Hang on. Then you're bringing in cosmology. Okay. We don't need to do that.
Well, it's all connected.
All we need to do is.
It's just
but
different.
If you think matter attracts matter, you're bringing in cosmology. Okay.
Yeah, observing the stars. We don't, the stars we observe on the fact that are hardly at all by dark matter.
Sure.
Well, I mean, we were just saying, how does the sky work? Because we were talking. Okay, Tarek, I'll pass the mic. Well, go ahead. Go ahead. You go first.
Like, just loosely, this is what I think they're essentially doing. Is that what is it? Euclidean geometry, like the basis of how we perceive things on the Earth, and then they're just like cutting and pasting that idea up into the sky. And it does present itself in a globe if you do that. But you got to realize you're looking up through like your own sort of celestial sphere of observation, and then you're looking up through a whole bunch of water up onto a surface potentially that you actually don't know what's going on, like or where the source of that light is actually coming from. Which I don't want to jump too far away from the notion of like, essentially you're just taking our geometric understanding of how things work on the ground and just like blanket labeling it to the sky, and that's how it works. And that's how you kind of get away with this, like applying this materialistic worldview as a consequence.
Did you say water? Light is traveling through water.
You are looking like So even when you're looking through the air that you're breathing right now has water in it, right? So whenever you look up in the sky, you call it a tiny bit, but I mean it fluxes and flows in its capacity and amount. But you are looking up through something that has density to it, which is why the whole refractive phenomenon seems to getting what's the term? like incurred or like evoked or invoked, I should say.
Yeah, well, it's a known fact, and we also know that the steeper the angle you're observing the sky, the less refraction there is. If you're looking straight on, there's hardly any refraction at all.
Yeah, great, cool. Yeah, dude, we're down with that. We're telling, like, my suggestion is that we're looking through water or a liquid form, right? It's pretty obvious that you're looking through a liquid. I'm not breaking any rules here or breaking any grounds.
Well,
yeah, it's very likely considering like.
No, but if you go, I mean, if you look at like the Keck telescope and the Subaru ones and these really big optical telescopes, they're very often they're like about 5,000 meters above sea level, and there's not much humidity in the air up there, and the air is much thinner, and that's why and the refraction in is less. That's why they put it up in the high elevation.
You would still be looking, in my opinion, through a bunch of water. You're still looking through a whole lot of water. It's drier, I'll admit, but dry is just relative to how wet something is. Yeah, it might be drier up there, right? Because that's the most extreme dryness of the Earth that you can experience personally yourself. My point would essentially be that you're still looking up through a whole bunch of water.
No, you don't. If that was the case, that would affect the electromagnetic spectrum. If there was a whole bunch of water, then the electromagnetic spectrum coming from stars and so on should be different, should be affected by it. It's not.
I've made my point. Gio, did you want to jump in? I don't want to take up all the mic time.
Oh, well, no, if you guys wanted to complete that, because my thing was on a little bit from something from a little bit earlier, and I had stepped away and then came back, so it's all good, whatever.
It's a whole thing, man. Like, we're talking about the complexity of it, but you're still looking up through water as far as I'm concerned. It's just like the dryness of it, it's not deep space, is it? Compared to like that 5,000, you say, feet above sea level, and then you're just asserting that you're still looking through atmosphere.
Meters, above 15,000 feet above sea level.
Yeah, I mean, even on the globe model, you'd be looking through a lot of fluid in the air, but at least moisture in the air.
You're looking through so much water still, dude. So much water. It's just it's very hard. It's very hard to extract at that point. You can't. I mean, the only reason you can get away with precipitation is because you're dealing with a sort of like what would you call it? It's a high potential meeting a low potential and then sort of precipitating out of the air. But it's not to say that the air is not full of a whole bunch of water still, causing such an optical effect.
What I wanted to ask, like, by the way, I said Stefan, but it's probably Stefan. It's probably Stefan, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I don't care.
Even.
Yeah, but what was I going to say? I mean, how, like, okay, for yourself, let's say, how have you isolated what those objects are and what medium they're in? Because I do hear you that at different altitudes, you can get different clarity and there's different equipment and all of that. But the sky is the sky. We can all look at it. We can all use our equipment. Granted, some claim, even better equipment. But the sky is the sky. But how have you isolated what those objects are and what medium they're in, whether there's any medium between them, whether, they're even physical or whether they're just observational? Like, how have you isolated any of those things just from the observations?
Well, I think one good example of like the planets being physical is the Schumacher-Levy incident on Jupiter, which is a really good example. Where Schumacher-Levy was calculated based on the expected gravitational pull from Jupiter way before, weeks before it crashed into it, and the trajectory of it, and so on and so forth. And
but can't they just
using the big telescopes like the Keck and so on? They actually observed that from the Earth impacts and the aftermath of the impacts. So yes, that for me that's a really good example of we know it's like Jupiter is a physical object.
They call it Keck, right? You're saying they call it Keck?
Keck. Yeah, Keck. or the VLBI.
You've heard of the frog god, right, Keck?
No.
If we told you we wrote it, we'd have to kill you, Tarek. I think that's
You don't Kekistan? You haven't heard of Kekistan, Stefan? Okay.
I heard about Tajikistan.
You know the frog?
Sort of point.
You know the
Yeah,
frog, the meme frog? That's Keck, Lord Keck, the frog. Are you
no,
aware
I
of
don't know.
this?
No. No.
Oh,
Sorry,
dude, go
got to
looking
go.
into
Nice talking to you
Keck
again.
lore.
Cheers.
Yeah, catcher. Keck took over. I feel like Cat. What the hell's going on? I feel like we need to get one of these guys that use Blender to really start honing in on some of this shit. I know the concave guys seem to really like their Blender stuff.
Yeah, that's true. I was thinking about that, Risky. About downloading Blender, maybe geeking out on it.
I'm almost there, dude. I got too much work on at the moment to be sitting down and like playing around with this shit.
Oh yeah. They have a website called Fiverr. Maybe we can hire some geeks.
Actually, that's not a bad idea. Although I have had bad experiences with Fiverr. It's more technically orientated though. I won't get into that here, but yeah, you could definitely like you could. It's not a bad idea, isn't it? Like we could just create some sort of Kickstarter, $100. We
Yeah.
have to agree upon the instruction that we send to a Fiverr guy who works on Blender. Ensure they send us the file once they're done, and we just
Yeah.
make like requests and updates, and we can run it like a wiki or like GitHub. You could almost run it like GitHub.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Rixie. Maybe we should. Okay, I'm gonna make a mental note and see if we can get something like that going.
Dude, I'll put $100 into it. Like you should be able to get something started with $100. They just got to put a couple of domes, a light source.
Yeah, I could do that too.
You'd have to work out what the first step would be, and I'd be advocating for like chucking Lindsay's model in for a run. But we really need to get that southern sort of rotation occurring within a sort of what you call it, using sort of refractive surfaces and like spherical, transparent materials. We really need to get that. It would help a lot.
Yeah.
We'd have to work out like a baseline. Like where do we want to start from? From the human observation, or do we want to start from the source? I guess you could kind of try to work your way from both, but I still think working from the observer's point of view and trying to work back to the source would be the most. It'd render your results really quickly. You could start proving things, and then you'd try to work out what's going on at the source.
Yeah,
You'd probably be about 20 steps in, and then you'd be like, you'd shift something around from the source and go upside down. You'll end up with a globe. Oh dear.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was kind of from earlier, but the fact that you can have like azimuthal planar grids and you can have the stars on a planar surface, and you don't need a globe for that, I think is very telling, because if it was a globe, you would have to actually put those planetariums on a curved surface. In theory, I'm saying for the sky to actually match that. Like you would actually have to have all of the observational points looking off antipodal, and therefore like not coplanar. Anyways, I was going to bring that point up earlier, but yeah, I guess the moment kind of passed for it. I think Stefan bounced, so.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like if you can create it with these coplanar grids everywhere, you can replicate that over a planar, and if they're all coplanar, you can replicate it all day. It's a match completely. Now, how this guy is working and exactly, that's a whole other question, but you can do it. Like you can represent it in a planetarium, which in that way, how it's working is it's obviously projected in that way in a planetarium. So whatever the actual sky is what it is. But the fact that we can replicate that on all those coplanar surfaces and don't require
That's a good point.
for it. Yeah.
So if we were to do a Blender model, we would start with the what do they call that? Sorry. Shit. Right on the tip of my tongue. Don't worry. My apologies.
It's okay. Oh, the personal dome? That's not it, is it?
Yeah, something like that. What's the place that you go, like Stellarium, but you go to a location?
Oh, planetarium.
Planetarium. Call it a planet. That's why I can't remember this bullshit. Okay, cool. So we'd start off with a planetarium sort of style thing, and we'd work our way back to the source.
Yes. How come? Oh,
Yeah, and
how long-
planetarium has the word plane in it. Planetarium,
Planetarium.
plane.
Yeah.
Because the
Full
foundation.
show. Maybe I had a T into it for the Templars, man.
Planetarium, which is interesting because you have like terrarium. This is a planetarium.
It's got my name in it too, Geo.
Does it? Planetarium?
Terrarium. Give that a go.
Oh, terrarium. Terrarium. Yep. Yeah, I'm
Where
just
does
saying, like,
Terry-
however this guy is working is a whole question in and of itself. Like, what are they made of? What is the, how far are they? Like, all of those questions. However, the way they actually observe to us, can be entirely replicated on, without the ground having to curve whatsoever. So you can have like a flat floor in a planetarium, and always is. Now, granted, that's a very small area, so I realize there are sort of counter arguments to try to claim that you have to go to larger areas, and then that's when the curvature starts being claimed to be there. And anyways, yeah, there's so there is a way in which the mainstream adapts this. They're not just saying, oh, the Earth is a plane because of planetariums, because obviously there's planetariums all over the world, and they claim it's a globe. So yeah, so
Dude, could we get go Fiverr, get a Blender Pro, just chuck Shane's sort of proposal, or I've forgotten the name of the gentleman that first put that forward, and we just ask them to, just build that model in Blender. That'd be so, dude. You'd pay someone $1,000 just to replicate what Shane's doing in a Blender model. Sorry, with his whatever that coding is. I've tried to use it. It's very difficult to use. But yeah, dude, we could just throw Shane's model at a guy with Blender capabilities and just see what they come up with. Hell, chuck $200 at 3 or 4 people and just see what they come up with and take the best one and just go with that, and then refine the model as we go.
Yeah.
We could do a community source sort of this is the model, this is what we're trying to achieve. Can we do this in Blender? Chuck a couple of $100 at it just to see if anyone can actually come up with a solution in Blender, and then go from there.
What it made me think of is if you had a software that was really detailed, which obviously Google Earth and Stellarium, some of these already show that to a degree. But if it was on a more proprietary, or not necessarily proprietary, but just something that's not owned by, them basically, and that and then it could be a system where potentially people could take their observation point on Earth, but then I guess the real thing is to be able to measure distances. But anyways, there might be a way to integrate celestial navigation data and distances independently, without the dependency on Google Earth and the military, the GPS, maybe slowly over time, but at least getting somewhere, So yeah, if there's 10 people in this city and they do there's 10 people in that city, 10 people. But there measurements of distance is a big thing as well. And doing that independently is a project. But I'm just saying, if you were able to start to do that, you'd actually start to be matching the sky with the ground. Accurately.
Could we not just align sort of sunrise, sunset for certain positions on the model, and just as long as they get in the sunrise and sunset right, then distances should almost take care of themselves. Am I wrong in saying that? I'm not sure.
Well, it's just that the distances are either different if they're coplanar or if they're spherical. If they're on a globe or on a spherical type layout, they're different distances. So that's the thing. So they tell us it's a globe, and then obviously there is GPS and all that. Now, this becomes relevant though at larger distances, So when you're talking about thousands of miles rather than hundreds or even tens, because obviously tens of miles is one thing to be accurate, but we're talking about thousands upon thousands. of miles. That's another question, and especially like across the continents. But yeah, I mean the distances between everything are different on a sphere than they are a plane. So if from the perspective of the Earth is a plane and they're lying to us about the globe, then they've had to do like a conversion there, which is never going to be perfect, which then means there's going to be anomalies in the system, essentially, in the GPS at some point, whether that's the deep Southern Ocean or, deep Pacific Ocean or Atlantic Ocean. I mean, where that happens, because, over land, it's going to be pretty consistent, but that's in smaller areas. So yeah, I'm just saying if we could verify that even without their system, because yeah, the distances will give the shape, or well, it'll decipher between those, whether they're coplanar or the sphere they claim.
I mean, the distance, say, from the east coast of Australia to the west coast of America. So I got the sun setting on me now. So you guys are well into the nighttime by now. I mean, the sunrise and sunset times, like if we're trying to measure this celestial phenomenon and try to work it out, like what distances would you be specifically looking for? Like, would you say like the continental sort of distance from the east coast or west coast of Australia?
Well, yeah, I mean, basically just how it all fits together. Because like even on the Walter Bislin thing, he's got that little hemisphere dome, but that's what the sky is. Like that's from Stellarium. He just has it over a little cartoon of the AE map. But I mean, so that's the question. Like if the sky is the sky, we already know that's what it is, that hemisphere, at all the different longitude and latitudes. The question is though, is how does that thing actually map all of those different positions map with distance, between them? And it should fit a globe if it was a globe in terms of those distances. So, yeah, I'm just saying like it's kind of the hemisphere thing just is the sky, and then it's just different ones, and then being able to measure those distances. So if we had some kind of way, like some big network that everyone could do certain areas, and then if someone could add, it could be data added to it.
Those distances only matter for what plane flights and such. Like this is why I'm trying to refer back to the sunrise and sunset, is because I mean distances that planes travel, who friggin' knows how fast they're actually going. Once they get up into a higher altitude within the jet stream, they could just be claiming that they're going 1,000 kilometers an hour and only be traveling 500 or vice versa. Everything should relate back to the sunrise and sunset at that point, I think.
But yeah, I mean, definitely like the greater distances between the continents is where the larger contentions would be. But just on that idea, like to have like some kind of a whole network where people could like independently upload, like their celestial navigation data, different areas there are, if they have measurements of distance or some way to do that. And in the future, there could be even multiple teams doing this all over the world. So what I'm saying is that, I mean, I guess some people who think there is a globe, they might just think this is just like, like an extraneous thing that doesn't need to be done because they think it's already been verified as a globe. However, of course, from the perspective that it's not a globe, this is like basically the, one of the things that could be done that if played out into its full extent would be able to basically map the whole Earth, by compiling all of our data from all of humanity that's not sifted through Google, who knows what, before it gets to us. Government, all of it. The WGS 84 is just given to us by the government. Anyways, yeah, the whole way it is now.
We could do this though. I mean, from what I've seen of GitHub projects and the way that they work, it could definitely be like an open source sort of project of contribution. A lot of this stuff seems to be like sort of occurring within the social domain. So people talking back and forth about these ideas. So I don't know, like just having something like that or like a central source, but it requires a bunch of nerds and geeks to sort of really get in that GitHub project sort of style for such an attempt. I'm actually kind of surprised it hasn't happened yet, frankly. Maybe I should like knock on Biastically's door or something. See if he can arrange something. Just give him like just give him the idea, a kernel of an idea, and he'll sort of go for stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, there was a funny name, like somebody like Curvature Go. Somebody came up with like Pokemon Go, but Curvature Go. I think there was even a meme made about it. This was years ago on the 24/7 server. I'm not really necessarily even talking about that, but that was like even an idea of having some kind of like, the way Pokemon was popular, but like if people, instead of like catching, Pokemon things that are just like programmed into some random game, which I get could still be fun. It sounds like it's like geocaching and stuff, caching. It is kind of fun, but either way, but like this would just be a way, that like observations all around the Earth. I mean, if it's called Curvature Go, the idea, like obviously like testing for curvature everywhere over the Earth kind of thing. But even just like that general outline of an idea of some kind of a network, whether it be an app or a whole database with the Earth, of like independently mapping it and observing. So that there's be a huge like project to do, and would be interesting because it would just be like one part to just gathering more and more data. It would be an interesting project to put to.
I mean, what would you do though? Like, you'd ask people to take photographs of the sunrise and sunset, maybe like distance measurements and all the rest of it. They can pick their location based on like Google geometry, right? Like latitude, longitudinal values, and then we can just perform something of a transformation in the background. So every bit of data that they upload would then just transform and see how it actually operates within the flat map, and see whether or not we can get some, like, I don't know, some sort of resolution in that sense. Like just crowdsourcing the shit out of it. Someone just needs to build the platform.
Yeah, I mean, it could be to where people could submit their test results, like if they do certain testing or certain observations all around the world. And then, like I said, even with the celestial navigation side of it as well, like if people were out, doing celestial navigation and they could plot their little area, someone else plots their little area. And then, if that could all be compiled. Because I hear you with the sunset locations and sunrise, because that is consistent as you move between the tropics, as it changes and then throughout the year. And there is a correlation there of how much the sun changes when you change latitude, that is separate from its motion through the seasons, but still, just like the 1 degree per 69 miles claim kind of thing, as you move away, same with the sun, as you move, the sun moves, but I'm just saying, as you move north and south, obviously in the seasons and all of that. So but there's also like the east to west distances, which I think are really key, because that's when you get into like, the southern continents, and, do they have those longer distances of what the AE map shows, for example, would have versus other layouts. So like getting to some of those components. But I mean, on the broadest sense, there's a lot of layers that could be built into it. And like I said, it would have to be separate from like the control system though. And that could definitely start to, because we're talking about like models and maps on the larger scale. And I mean, unless one group can do it all themselves, then having like some kind of a network that we could all work together is definitely an interesting thing to have either way, even if it's not the final, thing or whatever, or even if it's not definitive fully or whatever, it still would be good to have that, as for a lot of reasons, just to, for a lot
You
of
need someone that really sort of takes on that curation role, that is just a curator. They just like information in, information out, how to handle what's coming in, and how it sort of imposes its observation upon, I guess, what the flat Earth supposition at that point. Because you're going to build your model and just see how all of these observations are actually correlating with the model.
Because either one group does it, or we all do it, as in pieces, basically.
Well, have you guys ever heard of True Earth Wiki?
Yeah.
So I've spoken with him, and he's also used some of my research, included it in there, and I have no idea how he put all of this together. But
I know, eh? Pretty thorough.
Yeah, I'll just drop the
Sounds
link.
like what I'm talking about with a curator. Like you need a curator rather than someone who's actually pioneering ideas. You just need someone to sort of to sit in the background. They don't need to sit necessarily in the background as a personality, but just Like, find a way to organize all this information essentially, and get it to the point where you make it so easy to upload your information in the right place such that it fits the data set, and make it really easy to do that. And dude, you're off for a crowdsourcing solution. It's just, it'll go beyond anything like you can do in and of yourself.
Yeah, he makes it kind of open source, sort of like Blender, but he does cross-reference all the information. His background, by the way, I forget what his name is, Jason or something. Anyways, he has a background in software development, and he's also a coder. So a lot of that stuff he just did by himself, created the entire website, and it's completely free. It's like a form of Wikipedia, but it's flat Earth.
Interesting. Yeah.
And there are thousands of links in here, and he's always updating it.
Oh, yeah. He's on the job.
Yeah. And I started learning how to use Blender. I was just watching tutorials on YouTube and stuff on how to use it. It doesn't seem super difficult just to learn the basics, but when you want to start getting into the hardcore aspect of like specialized coding and making macros and stuff like that, it's a little bit of a different story.
Dude, I use ChatGPT to make some macros. I've never really used ChatGPT for anything, but I needed some macro code things or some scripts, you know? I totally used it. It worked.
Oh, yeah. Well, ChatGPT is kind of dangerous because even though I've taken 2 Python courses, I'm not very good at coding. I mean, I understand the concept of it and all that, but what I did is I started asking it, like, using Python code, write me an algorithm for a 9-way intersection where one of the lights has gone out but comes on every other minute.
Totally, dude. Well, I had a similar thing because my thing was macros, so it was clicking at different parts of the screen. Yeah, totally. It's a similar in a way, different but similar. Yeah.
Because that comes into PLC, which I've only taken 1 course in PLC, which is programmable logical controls. And it's like what electricians do, but they're more like in computers. And yeah, it spit out the entire code for me in maybe 10 seconds.
PLCs?
No, well, the intersection thing. Yeah, like a 9-way intersection, which I don't think exists. But
yeah, dude, that is pretty amazing that AI can do that. That is actually just pretty cool. Like, that is definitely an upgrade because, dude, I was trying to do this, and it's on a auto hotkey is what it is. So it's like an auto hotkey script. So it's not really even that complicated. Like, auto hotkey is not even as high. You know, I'm sure it's not necessarily quite the same as some of the other ones because it's just like a whatever it is. But I was like looking at like, you know, bulletin board rooms or whatever, like message boards, and looking for, you know, the code, and then I was finding other people's code that was similar to what I wanted, and I was cutting and pasting it, and it wasn't working, or I had to then figure out. Anyways, there was all this stuff I was figuring out, and then finally I just went over to ChatGPT, told it what I wanted, and after it took about 10 or 15 tries of cycling through, because apparently the way these AIs, they just kind of keep searching, and it's like, well, it's going to be one of these 10, you know, and it keeps pumping them to you, and I had to keep saying like, no, not quite. Can you alter it a little bit? But yeah, it was pretty cool that it did it like that. It was definitely like made it a lot quicker and easier for me.
So what's a macros or a macros?
A macro? It's just a short form of a code. It's a command line.
What I wanted macro, what it is it's a key on the keyboard. So basically, like, you push the macro key, and then it plays out a sequence on the, you know, you can do various things like, yeah, either clicking or, you know, moving the mouse or doing, you know, that kind of thing. So there's a type of software I work with where there's a lot of like selection things that I have to do. So it's like, if I just push one macro, it's able to go click, click, you know what I mean? Just do it much quicker than me having to do those extra ones. So it just saves time. Yeah. It saves a lot of time.
Yeah,
I forgot what they call that in Photoshop. What do they call that in Photoshop? It's like playlist or something.
Could also
there's shortcuts.
Yeah.
Shortcuts?
No, in like Photoshop, I've done it before. Like I wrote you don't write a script. You just you press play or record, I should say, and then you press the buttons that you want it to go through the actions of for every single photo. Like, say you got 100 photographs and you want to do the same process to each one of them. you can go through you press like record, you go through the process on one of them, and then you stop the record, and then you can then use that for all the other photographs and just tell it to apply the same
Yeah, that's a macro.
instructions. It's something like, yeah, cool, right? I get what's going on.
Yeah, I didn't learn. Well, I didn't know anything about macros until I started playing World of Warcraft back in, what was it, 2006 or something. And I found out, oh yeah, you can create your own macros, like point and laugh. You just create your own icon and stuff, and then
Dude,
wow.
I think
So
I was playing around with this shit during my time in playing Diablo. I think it was Diablo 2. I found a way to get a bot to run out forces and just train up and all the rest of it. And it would just click around the screen, and based on certain interpretation of data, it would sort of play the character. And you get it be able to run.
Script, though. It's not really a macro is like a shorthand form. That's the easiest way I can explain it.
Yeah, it's a command you assign to a keystroke.
Yeah.
I have an AI challenge for you guys. I've been trying to get AI to solve the stock cutting problem, and so far it's not been able to do it. Are you familiar with that?
Your mic is a little hard to, as it often is. Could you say that again? What is it? I have you turned up. I'll turn up a little more.
It's called the stock cutting problem. So basically, you have
spot cutting.
Yeah. So stock cutting.
Stock so is in like a stock. Okay, stock cutting.
Yeah.
All right, now we
basically you have material, right? Let's say it comes in 5x6 sheets, right? And you have pieces you have to cut out from that material, and they're all various shapes or various sizes, rather. Let's say they're all square, make it simpler. And you need to know how many sheets to buy to cut as efficiently as possible with as little waste as you can. And it's doesn't seem capable of doing it as far as I can tell, but I don't know if anyone's played around with stuff like that before.
So I got a CNC guy that does a lot of my paneling for camper vans. I can send him files, and I lay it out on a sheet that's like 5 meters by 5 meters. It's obviously not the sheet you can actually proportionally cut, but he'll take all those shapes and he'll stick it in a program, so I can cut and copy all those shapes and then lay them out into sort of 5 or 6 standardized sheets, which are usually like 1200 by 2400. Is that what you mean? Like saving space?
Yeah.
So you can lay that all out? Yeah, okay. So there's
programs up to it, but they're kind of expensive. I mean, I think I might just splurge and get it at this point, because I end up having to do it all by hand.
No, dude, the one that I'm talking about, I know the guy. The guy was looking around. There's plenty of software that you can get freeware that is capable of doing that.
Really? I've not found a free version. Can you ask him what he uses?
Yeah, I'll go call up the software. But like, what are you trying to use a CNC machine?
No, for me, it's just when I order stuff, like I have to calculate the least amount of material to order. I have, they sell metal in 6 meter lengths. So if I have like 80 pieces, for example, 80 centimeter pieces, I have to go on like Illustrator and copy paste, line them up and see how many I can fit in one. And it's a bit of a mess, but.
No, you should be able to find a solution. I could do that on my, setup that I've got, pretty easily. I'd change the constraints of the sheet size, and it would automatically arrange it for me. I don't know what you're doing wrong, but.
Wow.
It depends on the software that you like. My output is from SketchUp, so it's like not a hyper technical piece of software. I don't know what your output is.
SketchUp does it?
Well, I mean, yeah. It took me about a week to work out all the different softwares and which ones to use like appropriately, but I mean, I can do it on SketchUp. Pretty easy.
I'll have to check that out then. All right, that was my question.
We can talk about it in the background if you want, rather than having it in a live chat. You're welcome to send me a message and outline the problem for me, and just
Sure.
check out SketchUp there. I use a software called OpenCut? I think it's called OpenCut or something. It's French.
So have you guys ever heard of it? Basically, it's a CNC machine, but it's a laser cutter that's used for engraving glass. And you can set the parameters for it. I mean, they're not very cheap. I mean, you're going to be spending $3,000 or $4,000 for a decent one, but it's similar to like a 3D printer, but it's just using a laser just to cut through the glass and create pretty much any image you can think of. Anything that you can put in there with the proper file. And I bought 2 of those, one for my co-host, Rico, and, well, technically I'm his co-host, on our stream that's going to be Sunday night. And I also sent one to Jaren. It's one of the reasons I don't talk to Jaren anymore, because he was like, oh yeah, super cool. And then he took it away, and I don't know, he might have thrown it away. But, which I really don't. I really hope he didn't, because that was not cheap. But when it comes to the software used for that, I spoke with Nick, the guy that actually makes all those, who I bought them from, and he said, yeah, the software is super easy to use, and it takes like, I don't know, I think he said like 3 or 4 hours to comprehend like the instruction manual and stuff. He said, but after that, it's pretty simple, because a lot of the software is just like, all you have to do is like put in like simple command prompts, like really simple, which is sort of like a macro. But I think I'm going to save up some money and I'm going to start doing that myself, because it's really fucking cool how it works and how the outlook, how the outcome looks afterward. I'm going to start maybe like getting a little side hustle going on or something. And then, another little interesting story. I was at Home Depot years ago, and this was probably 8 years ago, roughly. And I was in the electrical aisle, and I had my work uniform on, my school work uniform. And the guy thought, this guy named Yuri, who was 82 years old, he was Russian, a real thick Russian accent. And he was asking me, he thought I was an employee. And I was like, no, I don't work here, but I'll help you out. Because I knew everything was. Anyways, I help him pick out certain little things, and he's like, oh, cool. And then he invites me over to his shop. And I got in there. He says, yeah, I need help wiring up this 3D plasma cutter. So it's like a 3D printer, but it uses, it's a plasma cutter to basically cut anything you want into any shape you want. So I went over there, I helped him out with the wiring, and I was asking him, like, why do you need my help? Because he said, oh, I have 2 PhDs. And I was like, okay. He's like, well, my fingers don't work very well anymore. I have a very difficult time, working with wires and tools. And I was like, okay. And he paid me, I forget what it was, like $200 or something. And then I found out later on, I was just redoing all the wiring and the harnesses and checking all the relays, making sure those worked. That kind of shit. I got grossly underpaid, because then later on, he turned around. This is what I found out later. He's like, oh yeah, UC Berkeley, in their physics and engineering department, paid him $25 million for that.
Wow.
So, yeah, I got kind of ripped off. He didn't be like, oh yeah, by the way, thanks a lot. Here's $25,000 or something. Or he's like, yeah, this is my retirement plan. I was like, yeah, you're 82. You should already be retired, but...
He was 82?
Yeah, he was 82.
How much
probably
power did that thing generate? Oh, sorry. Do you remember how much voltage that thing was using, or?
120 volts.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Well, no, I'm sorry. It's parts of it were 120, but because it was a commercial building, the other parts, when you combine 2 or 3 phases together, will equal 208 volts, and that would be for a Y transformer.
I guess that's more than enough to be cutting.
Yeah, he's the one that designed it. He did all the software and everything. But he said, I don't know, like arthritis or something. So he needed help with rewiring it. Otherwise, UC Berkeley would not buy it. Or their grant money wouldn't go through.
Yeah, plasma cutter.
3D plasma cutter. Yep. But he sent me a message like a year after all that. And he's like, oh, yeah. So thank you very much for your help. And I was able to sell it to UC Berkeley for $25 million. And I was like, oh, well. Cool.
Yeah, he should have gave you at least a bottle of champagne.
Yeah, I mean, something.
Yeah.
A gold coin, or not just sending me a text saying thanks and then just rubbing it in my face. But whatever, I was helping out an old guy, I guess.
When was this, Andrew?
This is basically right when I started teaching.
No, like what year was it?
Yeah, I'm trying
Well,
to think.
yeah, a year ago, you said.
No, he sent me a message a year after I helped him do that. And that was in, I think, 2017. Because I started teaching in 2016. So yeah, I think it was 2017.
So you haven't helped out any other 80-year-olds since then?
Aside from my grandparents, no. Oh, and if anybody is in the Santa Clara area of California, like the Silicon Valley area, since my grandparents have passed away, like all of our family have been taking everything out and having garage sales, but it's amazing how much shit people collect over the 60 years of living in a home. And a lot of it's, if anyone's in the area and you want to come by and get a bunch of free shit, it's on the front lawn. I'll give you the address, but you have to be in the area.
Okay, I'll hook my trailer up.
Yeah, because we're going to do one more garage sale, and then after that, it's going out for basically the dumps. Everyone already took everything they wanted from the house.
Yeah, I think it all might be gone by the time I get there.
Well, we're hoping that it's going to just like disappear over the weekend or something. I mean, there's a lot of really good stuff in there, though. I would take it myself, but I don't have any room for it in my condo because I'm already moved in. I don't need that.
It's interesting how many objects one can collect in a lifetime.
Yeah, you wouldn't think. I mean, it's like a 2,000 square foot house, something like that. And like, I was like, man, like just the stuff that's on the front lawn at the moment, like that would be like my everything I own, and that's only like 1/10 of the stuff that's in the house still.
I can relate to that because I moved twice before I moved here, and the first time I moved, we threw away 2 big giant sized skip bins full of rubbish because I couldn't keep it, and then the last lot when I moved to here, they took away nearly 2 big trailer loads of stuff. So I didn't keep it all.
Yeah, well, here's something interesting too, is if you go to a military base, go over to where like the barracks are and where the dumpsters are, because as soon as people deploy, they have to basically put it in storage or they just throw it away. I'm talking about they're throwing away computers and TVs and stereo equipment, clothes. I mean, shit that's like, it's in really good condition still, but they can't take it with them because they're deploying and they're not going to put it in storage for a year or something. That's if you want to be a dumpster diver, that is.
Computers and that I'd understand, because by the time they get back, it'll be obsolete.
Well, I mean, they do. I mean, they throw away all kinds of stuff. And I'll admit, I threw some shit away too. It's like, oh, what you can't put in your, it's called the cruise box. What you can't put in your, well, we were allowed 2 cruise boxes, maximum weight 70 pounds each, and anything you couldn't fit in there, you weren't bringing with you.
I heard stories from years ago where guys used to get deployed or go to war or whatever, and they'd had old classic muscle cars or whatever they bought when they got deployed, and they went away. The car just got left in storage for whatever reason, and then 20 or 30 years later, it was pulled out of storage or whatever. They just left it there.
Yeah, storage facilities, like there's that show Storage Wars, which is about 50% staged, but it's a real thing. You can actually go to these. My dad went to one. He didn't win the bid though. Yeah, it's a real thing though. You can go to these auctions at storage facilities where people just abandon their storage unit and stop paying the bill. Then it's after I think it's like I think it's at least a year they have to wait, and then after that it belongs to the storage facility.
Yeah, imagine if you're. Oh, sorry, Andrew.
No, that's all. That's all I had.
Oh, I was just gonna say, imagine you guys were the storage owners. Would you go through these storage rooms before you open it up to an auction, just to make sure there's like
you're not allowed to. I mean, you can open the door and have a bit of a look, but you're not really.
Do you think they do, or do you think they just?
For the TV show, they do. I guarantee it. But yeah,
right? They don't want any
just
like
cut off the lock,
surprises.
and then they'll take a look inside of there, and then just put another lock on it, and then show them cutting off the lock on TV.
Yeah, I'm sure they don't want any surprises on TV.
Yeah, because all of a sudden, like a whole bunch of like blow up dolls or something, like just fall forward, or if it's dangerous. Yeah, they definitely are gonna not let that be on TV, and it's all pre-recorded anyways. Yeah, but my dad went to one, and he went into what city was? I think down in LA somewhere. And he brought his truck with him, ready to bring a whole bunch of stuff with him, and people get really aggressive with their bidding. So he's like, yeah, he never won any of them. But either way, Santa Clara, California. It's like right in the heart of Santa Clara. My grandparents' house is. If anybody is in the area, I'll give you the address. You can come on by. And just take whatever the fuck you want.
Should they start making storage containers in sphere-like, or is flat practical?
I think flat is probably more logical.
Yeah.
And there's not very many buildings you're going to find that are built spherically or even hemispherically.
Yeah. Or the room. You need the space. We need the space.